The rain pounded against the pavement, wild, hard, cold. Thunder roared above New Lagos like the sky was angry with her too. But Celeste Vaughn didn't flinch. She stood there, drenched, shivering, a single duffel bag slung over her right shoulder. Her mother, Eleanor Vaughn, stood at the doorway, arms folded, lips thin, eyes sharp with rage. "You're throwing away everything we built for you," her father, Walter Vaughn, said. His voice was low but harsh, each word slicing through the noise of the storm. Celeste didn't reply right away. She looked at them, the parents who once sang her lullabies, packed her school lunches, and prayed over her exams. They didn't even let her inside to dry off. "I'm not throwing anything away," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Her left hand clutched her stomach, a soft curve forming under her coat. Eleanor's lip curled. "Then prove it. Get rid of it. Go back to law school. Forget this mistake." Celeste flinched, not because of the cold rain pouring down her face, but because the words pierced deeper than frostbite. "I won't," she said, looking her mother dead in the eyes. "I won't kill my baby to please you." The silence was deafening. Walter turned and walked away. The door slammed shut in her face. The wind howled, and Celeste was alone, but only for a second, because from the far end of the street, footsteps echoed on the wet concrete, and a voice called out to her, "Hey, you need a place to stay?" She turned. A man in a black hoodie stood under the street lamp, half his face hidden in shadow. Celeste's breath caught in her throat. Was this help? Or another danger? Celeste hesitated, staring at the figure under the street lamp. He was tall, slim, and the hood of his jacket was pulled low over his face. The rain dripped from the edge of it, and the light above flickered, casting long, strange shadows across the empty street. "You deaf?" he asked, stepping closer. "I said, you need a place to stay or not?" Celeste clutched her bag tighter. Her clothes clung to her skin, soaked through. The wind pressed against her back like a cold hand. Her lips trembled. "I don't know you," she said, her voice shaky but firm. The man chuckled, raising both hands as if to show he meant no harm. "I'm not trying to rob you, girl. You just look like you don't belong out here tonight." She blinked at him, wiping water from her eyes. "Who are you?" He lowered his hood. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, with a tired face and kind eyes. A thin scar ran across his chin, and his nose looked like it had been broken before. But there was something gentle about the way he spoke. "Name's Fola. I've been where you are. Trust me." Celeste hesitated, then looked down the road. The street stretched on in both directions, empty and cold. Her phone had died hours ago. She had no umbrella, no money, no friend willing to open their door. "I just need somewhere dry," she said quietly. "I won't stay long." Fola nodded. "All right then. Follow me. It's not much, but it's better than freezing on the sidewalk." She followed him through back streets and narrow alleys, the city breathing around them like a beast, neon lights blinking in the distance, honking cars, the distant laughter of strangers who had homes to go to. After 15 minutes, they stopped in front of a rusty blue gate. Fola knocked twice, then twice again. A tiny window slid open. A woman's voice spoke from behind the iron. "Who be that?" "It's Fola," he answered. "Got someone who needs a bed for the night." The window shut, and after a few seconds the gate creaked open. Inside was a compound with peeling walls, cracked pavement, and a strong smell of wet cement. A small building stood at the back, 2 floors high with faded signs that read, Mama D's Lodge, rooms by the hour, day or month. No nonsense. The woman by the gate wore a wrapper and scarf. Her eyes scanned Celeste from head to toe. She's pregnant. She's tired, Fola replied quickly. Mama D narrowed her eyes. She got money? Celeste looked away. She can work it off, Fola said. Mama D sucked her teeth. 1 week. After that she finds her own way. Fola nodded and turned to Celeste. You heard her. They climbed a narrow staircase to the 2nd floor. Room 3 was small and smelled of bleach, but it had a bed, a roof, and a single flickering bulb. Celeste dropped her bag and sat on the bed, too exhausted to cry. Fola lingered at the door. You'll be okay, he said. We all start from somewhere. Then he left, pulling the door shut behind him. Celeste sat alone in the dim room, water dripping from her hair. She stared at the cracked ceiling, her hand resting on her belly. She had no plan, no money, no family, just this baby, and this room. But for the first time in hours she wasn't standing in the rain. Still, as she lay down, she couldn't help but wonder, who exactly was Fola, and why had he really helped her? Celeste woke up to the sound of loud voices downstairs. Her body ached from sleeping on the thin mattress, and her stomach growled from hunger. She sat up slowly, blinking at the pale sunlight creeping through the broken blinds. The room was still dim, the air thick with the scent of bleach and old sweat. She had slept in her wet clothes, too tired to change. Her bag lay beside the bed, untouched. She reached for it, pulled out a clean shirt and leggings, and changed as quickly as her sore muscles allowed. Outside her door, the hallway was quiet. The wooden floor creaked as she stepped out. The walls were painted a faded yellow, cracked and peeling in places. Other doors lined the corridor, some half open, others shut tight. As she made her way down the stairs, the smell of fried beans and onions drifted into her nose. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten in almost a day. Downstairs in the courtyard, Mama D sat on a stool near the gate, stirring a pot over a charcoal stove. She looked up when she saw Celeste. You're awake, she said, her tone flat. Celeste nodded. Yes, Ma. Good morning. Mama D raised an eyebrow. You slept in my lodge, so now you work in my lodge. Celeste blinked, startled. I didn't. No talk too much, Mama D interrupted. There's mop and bucket in the back. Sweep the halls. Wash the toilets. That's how you pay for the room. Celeste swallowed her pride. Yes, Ma. She turned to do as she was told, but Mama D called her back. You eat first, she said, scooping some beans into a metal plate. Hungry girls are weak workers. Celeste's eyes welled with tears. She hadn't expected kindness, not here. Thank you, she whispered. Mama D said nothing more, just waved her off like she didn't care. But as Celeste walked away with the plate, she could feel the woman's eyes watching her. In the back of the lodge, she found the mop, bucket, and a bar of nearly used soap. The toilets were old and dirty, the kind that made you gag when you stepped in. But she scrubbed. She mopped. She cleaned until sweat dripped from her forehead. By noon, her back hurt and her hands were red. As she sat by the tap washing her face, another girl approached her. She was short with braided hair, a loud chewing gum in her mouth and attitude all over her face. You the new girl? She asked, crossing her arms. Celeste nodded. I'm Janet. Room 5. Don't touch my stuff, don't look at my man, and don't think you're better than me. I wasn't. I said what I said. She walked away without waiting for a reply. Celeste sighed. This place wasn't home. It wasn't safe. But it was shelter. And for now that was enough. As she returned to her room later that evening, a knock came on her door. She opened it slowly and saw Fola leaning on the wall, arms crossed, a small paper bag in hand. Got you this, he said, handing it over. Soap, toothbrush, some basics. Celeste hesitated. Why are you helping me? Fola looked at her for a long second. Because someone once helped me, he said simply. And maybe, just maybe, you'll help someone else one day. Then he turned and walked away. Celeste shut the door and looked inside the bag. She smiled. The first real smile since she left her parents' house. Maybe this city wasn't completely heartless. But as she lay down again that night, she felt a flutter in her belly, the baby kicking for the first time. It was weak, gentle, but it was real. Life inside her. Hope inside her. And yet she knew this was only the beginning. Celeste sat on the edge of her bed, hugging her knees. Her body felt like it had aged 10 years overnight. Her arms ached from scrubbing floors, her back screamed with every movement, and her legs throbbed from standing too long. But none of it compared to the sharp cramps that had been twisting through her belly all morning. She pressed her hand against her growing stomach, her fingers trembling. The baby was still moving, but the pain was getting stronger each day. No doctor, no vitamins, no comfort, and no one to talk to. She had seen girls like her on the street, young, pregnant, alone, and she had always wondered how they ended up that way. Now she knew. You fall. And when you hit the ground, there's no one waiting to catch you. The lodge was awake now. Downstairs, someone was banging on the gate, shouting at Mama D. Music blasted from one of the rooms. The sound of arguing floated through the thin walls. Celeste stepped outside her room. The hallway smelled of fried plantain and kerosene. She walked slowly, one hand on her belly, hoping the pain would pass. At the end of the hall, room 6's door was half open. Inside, a girl lay curled up on the bed, whispering to herself. Her name was Ada. A soft-spoken woman with sunken eyes and a scarf always tied tight around her head. They hadn't spoken before. Celeste lingered in the doorway. Something pulled her in. You okay? She asked softly. Ada looked up, her eyes wide and tired. She gave a small nod, then waved her inside. Celeste stepped in and sat on the edge of the bed. I'm Celeste. Ada, the girl whispered. I know. The room was dark. A single bulb flickered above, barely lighting the space. A calendar from 2021 still hung on the wall. A teddy bear, old and dirty, lay in the corner. I'm hungry, Ada said suddenly. But I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. Celeste understood that kind of hunger, the one that made your head spin and your chest feel hollow. I have 2 crackers in my bag, she said. We can share. Ada's face lit up. Not from the food itself, but from the simple act of being seen, being offered something. As they sat there chewing in silence, Ada spoke again. I was like you once, she said. Pregnant. Alone. Kicked out. Celeste turned to her. What happened? I lost it, Ada said quietly. At 7 months. Stress. No food. No help. Celeste froze. Her heart pounded. I came here after. Mama D gave me a room. I stay quiet. Work. Breathe. Celeste could barely swallow. She placed her hand gently on her belly again, as if trying to shield her baby from Ada's story. I won't lose mine, she whispered. Ada smiled faintly, but her eyes held no joy. Only understanding. Only pain. You better fight, she said. No one will fight for you. Just then a voice shouted from downstairs. New girl. Celeste. Come help with water. It was Mama D. Celeste stood, her legs weak. Ada touched her wrist before she left. You're not the only one hiding here, she said. We all came from something bad. Just don't let it break you. Celeste nodded and walked away. But as she carried a heavy bucket down the stairs that day, her back aching and heart pounding, she couldn't stop thinking about what Ada had said. This city, this place was full of women like her. Lost. Hiding. Fighting. And somehow still alive. But for how long? That night, the wind howled louder than usual. Celeste couldn't sleep. She sat by the dusty window of room 3, staring out at the broken street lamp that flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or give up. Her hands cradled her belly. The baby hadn't moved much that day. She told herself it was normal, that babies had quiet days too. But the cramps hadn't stopped, and fear twisted like a knife inside her. Just then a soft knock tapped on her door. She hesitated. Her heart jumped. It was almost midnight. Who is it? She asked, her voice low. It's me, Fola replied from the other side. You awake? Celeste opened the door. Fola stood there holding a thin white envelope. This came for you, he said. Addressed to Miss Celeste Vaughn, room 3, Mama D's lodge. Weird, right? Celeste's eyes widened. No one knew she was here. Except Mama D. And maybe her parents? She took the letter with shaking fingers. Thank you. Fola leaned against the wall. You okay? She nodded. I don't know. You want me to stay while you read it? Celeste looked at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Fola stepped inside, sitting quietly in the corner. She sat on the bed, ripped open the envelope, and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. It was her mother's handwriting. Celeste, your father doesn't know I'm writing you. I had to ask an old neighbor if they'd seen you. When they mentioned a girl who looked like you working at a lodge, I didn't want to believe it. But here I am, writing to you in secret like I'm the one who's done something wrong. I miss you. I hate how things ended. I was angry, scared, not just for you but for what people would say about our family. Maybe that's my sin, caring more about reputation than you. I don't know where this path will take you, but I want you to survive it. I want you to live even if it's not with us. And I pray every night that one day you'll forgive me. Love, Mom. Tears rolled down Celeste's cheeks as she finished reading. She folded the letter and held it close to her chest. She wrote to me, she whispered. Fola said nothing, just gave her a small nod of understanding. She doesn't even know if I'll write back. But she still wrote. That's what love looks like when it's ashamed, Fola said. It hides, but it's still there. They sat in silence for a moment, the night pressing in around them. Finally Celeste asked, Did your family throw you out too? Fola gave a small smile. No, mine left on their own. I was 12. One morning they were there. The next, just silence. Celeste's heart clenched. I'm sorry. He shrugged. I got used to silence. That's why I know what it looks like when someone finally breaks it. He stood. You should sleep. Big day tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? She asked. You're going to the free clinic. I spoke to someone. They'll see you. No charge. Her mouth fell open. You did that for me? Fola just smiled and walked out, leaving her staring at the door. The letter from her mother sat on her lap, hope in one hand, fear in the other. But now, something else bloomed quietly inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. The morning air was sharp and unforgiving as Celeste stepped out of Mama D's compound. Her sweater was too thin for the wind, and her sandals flapped against the dusty sidewalk, but for the first time in days she was walking with purpose. Fola walked beside her, a backpack slung casually over one shoulder. Neither of them spoke much. The city was waking up around them. Horns blaring, sellers shouting, buses screeching to a halt, but Celeste felt like she was moving through it all behind a glass wall. When they turned onto Maple Street, she saw the clinic. It was small, tucked between a block of crumbling apartments and a mechanic's shop. The paint on the sign had faded, but the words still read clearly. Maple Street Women's Health Center. Her legs suddenly felt heavy. I don't know if I can do this, she murmured. Fola looked at her gently. You already are. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant and baby powder. A few women sat quietly on metal chairs, some with children, some alone, all looking tired. The receptionist behind the desk didn't even look up as they walked in. Fola approached the counter. She has an appointment with Nurse Tenny. We were told to come. The receptionist, still chewing her gum lazily, glanced at her list and waved them toward a corridor. Celeste's heart pounded louder with every step. The clinic's hallway was lined with peeling posters about breastfeeding, prenatal vitamins, and danger signs during pregnancy. Some of the posters were torn. Some were stained. All of them felt like they belonged to a world Celeste had been kicked out of. At the end of the hall, a woman in a navy blue uniform waited. She had tired eyes but a warm smile. You must be Celeste, she said softly. Celeste nodded. I'm Nurse Tenny. Come in, let's check you and the little one. Fola waited outside as the door closed behind her. The room was small but clean. A hospital bed, a table with papers, and an old ultrasound machine stood in the corner. Nurse Tenny helped her onto the bed. Lift your top for me, she said gently. Let's see how baby is doing. Cold gel touched her belly, and the machine crackled to life. Celeste held her breath. Then a sound. Fast, rhythmic, alive. Thump, 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 thump. Tears spilled from her eyes as she heard her baby's heartbeat for the first time. Your baby is strong, Nurse Tenny said with a smile. You're tired, but the baby is fighting. Just like you. Celeste couldn't speak. She didn't need to. The sound said everything. She wasn't alone. There was life inside her, real life. Hope beating like a drum beneath her ribs. Nurse Tenny cleaned the gel and helped her sit up. I'll get you some supplements. You'll need them. And next week we'll check again. Celeste nodded, wiping her tears. When she stepped out, Fola stood immediately. Well? He asked. She nodded, a shaky smile on her face. She's okay, she whispered. The baby's okay. They walked back through the noisy city, past loud markets and smoky food stalls. But this time Celeste wasn't drowning in it. This time the noise felt like life, like something she could survive, and maybe, just maybe, even win. By the time Celeste and Fola returned from the clinic, the sun had slipped behind the skyline, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The gates to Mama D's lodge stood wide open, and music boomed from inside like a house party had taken over the compound. Celeste winced at the noise, her head still spinning from everything at the clinic. But beneath the exhaustion, a new strength had begun to settle in her bones. She had heard her baby's heartbeat. Nothing could take that away. They stepped through the gates just as Mama D's heavy voice thundered through the corridor. Fola! Celeste! Come here! The entire compound paused. Fola glanced at Celeste. Let me do the talking. They found Mama D on the ground floor, seated on a wide plastic chair like a queen watching her court. Her hair was wrapped in a bright scarf. A toothpick danced between her lips. Her thick arms were folded tightly across her chest. Around her stood two of her older tenants, slim street-smart women who didn't hide their irritation as they eyed Celeste from head to toe. You left without permission, Mama D said coldly. I'm sorry, Celeste said, stepping forward. It was important. I'm not talking to you, Mama D snapped. I'm talking to the boy who knows the rules. Fola's jaw tightened. I took her to the clinic. I know someone there. She needed help. Mama D slowly stood. The music from one of the rooms stopped suddenly, as if even the speakers were afraid. You think this is a charity? She asked. You think this is a school dormitory where people come and go as they like? No, Ma, Fola said quietly. You forget, boy. You owe me. And you? She turned her glare on Celeste. You're still on trial. 1 week late on your rent, and I throw you out like yesterday's water. Celeste swallowed hard, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. But I'll give you one chance, Mama D continued. You want to stay here? You work for it. Celeste blinked. Work. Clean. Cook. Fetch water. Whatever I say. Until you earn your keep. You're not special just because you're carrying something. Fola stepped forward. She can't lift heavy things. I didn't ask you, Mama D snapped. She speaks for herself. Celeste hesitated. Every part of her body was tired. Her back ached. Her feet hurt. Her heart still carried scars from her parents' rejection. But she had no choice. I'll work, she said. Mama D narrowed her eyes. Good. Start tomorrow. 5 a.m. Without another word, the woman turned and walked away, her slippers smacking the floor like thunder. Fola cursed under his breath. I hate this place. Celeste looked up at him. Don't. You brought me to that clinic. That means more than anything. They climbed the stairs in silence. Each step felt heavier than the last. When Celeste reached her room, she opened the envelope from her mother again and read the words slowly, letting them wrap around her heart. I want you to survive this. She sat on the bed, her palms flat against her belly. I will, she whispered. No matter what. Outside the city roared on. Inside Celeste whispered a promise. Not to her mother, not to Fola, not even to Mama D, but to herself. The knock came at exactly 4:55 a.m. 3 loud bangs on the wooden door. Celeste jolted upright from sleep, heart racing. For a moment she forgot where she was, then reality returned. Mama D's lodge, room 3, cracked walls and a growing baby inside her. She groaned as she sat up. Her back ached, and the floor was cold under her feet. Her breath misted slightly in the dim morning air. Celeste. It was Mama D's voice. Out. Now. She pulled on her old hoodie and slid into her sandals, then stepped into the corridor, where 2 other girls were already carrying buckets downstairs. She joined them wordlessly. Down in the yard, Mama D stood with arms folded. A wide basin and a broom waited beside her like weapons. "You'll start by scrubbing the compound," she said. "After that, kitchen work. Then you'll sweep all the corridors." Celeste's throat tightened. "Okay." "I don't want okay. I want silence and speed." And with that, Mama D turned away, lighting a cigarette as she vanished into her office. Celeste bent down and picked up the basin. The cold bit into her hands. She filled it at the tap in the corner of the yard. As she poured the water across the cement, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection. Her face looked older than 22. Eyes tired, jaw set, belly showing beneath her hoodie now. She scrubbed one corner of the compound, then the next. The water soaked into her trousers and left her legs numb. When she finished, it was just after 6. The sun had barely touched the horizon. Mama D emerged again. "You'll help in the kitchen now," she ordered. Inside the kitchen, 2 pots already steamed on the stove. One of the older tenants, Uju, looked Celeste over with barely disguised irritation. "Cut vegetables," Uju snapped, handing her a dull knife and a basket of onions and peppers. Celeste obeyed. As she sliced, the strong onion smell filled her nose, bringing tears that had nothing to do with the sting. Her belly tightened again. A low cramp. She paused for breath. "You tired already?" Uju mocked. "No," Celeste said, forcing a smile. But inside she was breaking. By the time she finished in the kitchen and cleaned the corridors, her body was trembling. She leaned against the stair railing, breath shallow. A familiar voice called out, "Celeste." It was Fola. He stood at the gate holding a nylon bag. She walked over slowly. He passed the bag through the gate. "Bread, egg roll, and orange juice. You need strength." She opened it, and the smell of food nearly broke her. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "I wanted to," he said. "How's the baby?" "Still fighting. Just like the mama." She smiled faintly. From inside the lodge, Mama D barked again. "Celeste." Fola stepped back. "Eat when you can. I'll come by later." As he left, Celeste looked at the bag in her hand. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. She sat beside the small mango tree in the yard, peeled open the bread, and took a slow, grateful bite. And as she chewed, she whispered to herself, "You're still standing. That means you haven't lost." But deep inside her, she wondered, how long can I keep going like this? The day dragged on. After breakfast and a short rest, Celeste returned to her room. She lay on the mattress without sheets, her arms wrapped around her belly, too tired to move, too overwhelmed to sleep. She had just begun to drift off when she heard a knock. Not a loud one like Mama D's. A soft, hesitant knock. "Who is it?" she called, her voice dry. "It's Ada from room 7. Celeste sat up slowly. She didn't know much about the girl from room 7, only that she kept to herself, wore oversized sunglasses even indoors, and always seemed to be rushing in and out like a shadow. "Come in." The door creaked open and Ada stepped inside, carrying a small metal flask. "I made ginger tea," she said, offering it forward. "Helps with cramps. And the cold." Celeste hesitated, then accepted it with both hands. "Thank you." Ada nodded and sat down quietly on the floor, folding her legs. Her dark eyes scanned the room but didn't judge. "I heard Mama D gave you a full shift this morning." Celeste sipped the tea. Warm, spicy, comforting. She nodded. 5 a.m. She didn't even let me rest. Ada sighed. She does that, especially to girls like us. Celeste looked at her. Like us? Ada's voice was low. Girls who came here with nothing. Girls running from something. There was silence. Then Celeste asked softly, "What were you running from?" Ada smiled sadly. "A man I thought loved me. He promised me heaven. Left me in a room with nothing but a scar and a pregnancy. I lost the baby. But I didn't lose myself." Celeste felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Ada shrugged. "I've been sorry enough for both of us. You don't have to be." She looked at Celeste's belly. "How far along are you?" "Almost 5 months." Ada nodded again. "You'll feel stronger soon. But it gets harder too. People will look at you different. Talk behind your back. Even people like Mama D who have done worse." Celeste blinked. "You think she has a story too?" "Everyone here has a story," Ada said. "Even Mama D. Maybe especially her." They sat in silence, the tea warming Celeste's hands, the moment soft and still. "You ever think about leaving this place?" Celeste asked. Ada chuckled. "Every single day. But it's funny. Sometimes the worst places give birth to the best strength." Celeste smiled faintly. "You sound like someone who's survived a war." "I have," Ada replied. "And now so are you." As she stood to leave, she said something that echoed in Celeste's ears long after the door shut behind her. "Don't let Mama D break your spirit. That's what she feeds on. Weakness." When Celeste finally lay down again, she felt lighter. She wasn't as alone as she thought. There were other warriors in this place. Quiet ones. Scarred ones. But fighters all the same. And maybe, just maybe, she was one too. The next morning, Celeste woke up later than usual, the sun already spilling through the cracked window. For the first time in days, Mama D didn't bang on her door. No threats. No chores. Strange. She sat up slowly, wary of the silence. When she opened her door, she saw a piece of paper on the ground. A short note, scribbled in red marker. "Go and sell these before noon. Come back with the money. Mama D." Beside the paper was a nylon bag stuffed with 10 pairs of second-hand sandals. Faded leather, plastic buckles, a few still coated in dust. Market rejects. Celeste frowned. "Sell?" She picked up the bag and walked downstairs. Ada was waiting near the gate, leaning against the wall with a biscuit in her hand. "Mama D's sending you out, huh?" Ada said. Celeste nodded. "To sell sandals. Where?" "No idea." Ada sighed and broke her biscuit in two. "Here, take half. You need energy." Celeste took it gratefully. "Thanks. You're always helping." Ada gave her a tired smile. "It's the only way we survive here." With the bag in hand and her stomach lightly full, Celeste set off into the city. The streets were alive with noise. Market women shouted over each other. Bus drivers cursed in loud Yoruba, and children darted across the road with rubber slippers slapping the ground. She found a corner near the Eco-Market Bridge, a dusty spot where other hawkers had laid out their goods. A woman selling roasted corn scowled at her, but didn't chase her away. Celeste spread out the sandals on an old nylon sheet she found in a gutter. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. For the first hour, no one stopped. Some glanced. Others didn't even bother. Her voice was shaky at first, then firmer. "Fine sandals. Good quality. Only 1,500 naira. Last price." Sweat poured down her back. She adjusted her hoodie over her belly, trying not to draw attention. But it was no use. A group of teenage girls passed by, whispering and laughing. "See, Belly, and she's selling sandals. Be like her boyfriend Dump Am. She no shame." Celeste's ears burned. She turned away, pretending she didn't hear. Then, just as she was about to give up, a woman in a green wrapper stopped. "How much for this one?" the woman asked, picking up a black strap sandal. 1,500, Celeste said quickly. "But for you, 1,200. The woman smiled. "You get mouth sha. Bring it. I go try 'em." Within 20 minutes, Celeste had sold 3 pairs. Not much, but something. She took the money and clutched it tightly. Mama D said, "Come back with the money." "Not how much." As she packed up the remaining sandals, she noticed a young boy nearby watching her. Barefoot. Skinny. About 8 or 9. She hesitated, then pulled out the smallest pair of rubber slippers and tossed it to him. The boy's eyes lit up. He slipped them on, gave her a silent nod, and ran off down the alley. Celeste smiled to herself. It was one small act, one small choice. But for the first time since she was kicked out of her parents' house, she felt like she had control of something. As she walked back toward the compound, she tightened her grip on the money, prepared for whatever Mama D might say. No matter what happened, she had made someone smile today, and that felt like power. The rain came suddenly, as it often did in the city. One minute the sun blazed through the sky, and the next thick clouds rolled in, blocking the light, followed by a fierce downpour. Celeste barely made it inside the lodge before it started to pour. She shook the water from her jacket as she entered the compound, her sandals squelching against the wet ground. The soft hum of the street vendors outside was replaced by the heavier sound of raindrops pounding the rooftops. Inside the lodge, Mama D was nowhere to be found. The other tenants had huddled in their rooms, avoiding the chill of the storm. It was oddly quiet, except for the occasional murmur from the girls in room 5, who were gossiping in the hallway. Celeste stood in the kitchen, staring at the half-empty shelves. Her stomach growled. It had been hours since she last ate, and Mama D hadn't sent her to work today. For a brief moment she allowed herself to rest. She sat on the old couch in the common room, her feet tired and sore, wondering what her next move should be. And then the doorbell rang. Celeste looked up, startled. It was an unusual sound. Hardly anyone ever visited the lodge, especially not during the rainy season. The bell rang again. Curious, she stood up, wiped her hands on her pants, and walked toward the door. As she pulled it open, she found a tall man standing there, drenched but still holding a briefcase. "I'm looking for Celeste Vaughn," the man said, his voice deep with a slight foreign accent. Celeste blinked. "That's me. Can I help you?" The man smiled slightly. "I'm Jonathan Clark, an old friend of your mother's. May I come in?" Celeste hesitated. She didn't know anyone named Jonathan Clark, and she certainly didn't know anyone who would claim to be a friend of her mother. But there was something in his demeanor that made her instinctively step aside and allow him in. "Please come in," she said, her voice cautious. He stepped into the lobby, shaking off the rainwater from his jacket, revealing a crisp, light blue shirt and well-fitted pants. His shoes were expensive, and there was a sense of confidence in the way he carried himself. He was clearly a man of some status. Celeste led him to the common room and gestured for him to sit. Can I get you something to drink? No need, Jonathan said, sitting down. I'm not here for a drink, though I appreciate the offer. Celeste's curiosity piqued. You said you're an old friend of my mother's? Yes, Jonathan said with a nod. I haven't seen Eleanor in many years, but I've been following your family's situation. I know things haven't been easy for you, especially recently. Celeste's heart skipped. What do you mean? Jonathan's face softened, his gaze shifting slightly. Your mother reached out to me about you, Celeste. She told me what's been happening, about your situation here. Celeste's chest tightened. Her mother had reached out? Why hadn't she told her? I'm just here to offer a bit of help, Jonathan continued. You've been through a lot, and from what I understand, things aren't going to get any easier if you stay in this place. But I have resources, opportunities. Celeste's mind raced. What kind of opportunities? He leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. I know someone who can provide housing for you, a place with stability, and I also have connections that could help you finish your education. Get the life you've always wanted. No more struggling. No more Mama D's. Celeste stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. Felt like a dream. Could this really be happening? Her mind flashed back to the day she had left her parents' house, to the painful words her mother had said, to the cold rejection. She had expected nothing more than survival. And now a stranger was offering her a way out. Why me? She asked quietly, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Jonathan smiled gently, his eyes softening. Because I know what you're capable of, and because I can see past the mistakes. We all have them, but that doesn't mean we have to let them define us. Celeste bit her lip, overwhelmed by the weight of the decision that seemed to hang in the air. Take your time, Jonathan said, noticing her hesitation. But understand this is a real chance. You can build a future for yourself and your child. A future far from this place. Before she could respond, the door creaked open and Mama D stepped inside. She was holding a wet umbrella, her face etched with annoyance as she glanced at the stranger sitting in the room. Who is this? Mama D demanded, her voice sharp. Jonathan stood and turned to her, extending a hand. I'm Jonathan Clark. I was just speaking with Celeste about some opportunities she may be interested in. Mama D eyed him with suspicion, then shot Celeste a sharp look. Opportunities, huh? You better be careful who you take help from, girl. Jonathan's smile remained unwavering. I assure you, Mama D, I'm only here to help. Mama D snorted, clearly unimpressed. You'd better watch out. Some people here think they can just walk in and pull strings. You don't want to mess with things that are already out of your control. Celeste's pulse raced. The tension in the room thickened. But Jonathan wasn't deterred. Thank you for your advice, Mama D. I'll make sure Celeste has all the information she needs. With a polite nod, he turned back to Celeste. Think about what I've said. I'll be waiting for your answer. As he left, Celeste stood frozen, her heart in turmoil. Mama D slammed the umbrella against the wall. What was that about? I don't know yet, Celeste said quietly. But something tells me this is my chance. Mama D's eyes narrowed. Don't get ahead of yourself, girl. You're not out of this place just yet. Celeste bit her lip, wondering just how much longer she would stay under Mama D's thumb.
The rain had stopped by the time Jonathan left. But the storm inside Celeste didn't settle. She sat on the edge of her bed, the same bed that had held her for weeks. Her fingers were clenched around the crumpled note that Jonathan had given her, a business card, simple yet elegant. The name, Jonathan Clark, stood out in bold letters, with an address underneath. Her thoughts were clouded with doubt, but the words echoed in her mind. You can build a future for yourself and your child. But she could still feel Mama D's eyes on her, still hear the warning in her voice. The woman who had thrown her out into the streets now watched over her with a coldness that seemed to extend through every corner of the compound. Celeste stood up slowly, her body heavy with exhaustion. She walked to the small window of her room and looked out, watching the last drops of rain trickle down the glass. The city seemed quieter now, almost peaceful, as though everything had paused for a breath. In the distance, the hustle of the market resumed. People went about their lives, buying, selling, living. Celeste's life felt like it had been paused too. A sudden knock at the door broke her reverie. Her heart skipped. She knew that knock all too well. "Celeste!" Mama D's voice called through the wood. "Open up!" Celeste opened the door slowly, meeting Mama D's stern gaze. "What now?" she asked, trying to keep the uncertainty out of her voice. Mama D barged in without waiting for a response, her wet umbrella dripping water onto the floor. "I want you to listen to me very carefully, girl. You think this is all some kind of fairy tale? You think that man who came here, Jonathan, is going to save you?" Celeste remained silent, her stomach tightening. Mama D took a step closer. "There are no saviors in this world. You get nowhere without hard work, without making the right deals. If you think you're going to leave me, leave this place, and just walk into some dream life, you're wrong. You'll end up on the streets with your baby." Celeste swallowed hard. Her eyes burned with frustration, but she said nothing. Mama D stepped back, eyeing Celeste with contempt. "You're nothing but a young girl who thinks she can take shortcuts. You can't. You won't. So, if you think you've got some big plan with him, forget it." With that, Mama D turned and stormed out of the room, leaving Celeste standing there with her own doubts swirling like a storm inside her chest. For the next few hours, Celeste couldn't focus on anything. Her mind raced between Jonathan's offer and Mama D's words. The decision felt too big, too far out of her reach. It felt impossible. But then, something inside her snapped. She wasn't going to let fear control her. She wasn't going to let anyone, not even Mama D, define her future. With a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks, Celeste grabbed the business card from Jonathan. She didn't have time to second-guess herself. She needed to take a step, to make a choice. She needed to take control. Celeste packed a small bag, nothing more than the bare essentials. The card, her ID, and a few clothes. Her stomach still fluttered with nervous energy, but there was no going back now. She knew what she had to do. As she stood in front of the door, she hesitated for a moment. It was a small hesitation, but it felt as though she was saying goodbye to something. Goodbye to the person she had been. She left the room, careful not to make any noise. The hallways were silent. It felt like no one was there, as though everyone had vanished. When she reached the front door, she looked around, half expecting Mama D to appear out of nowhere. But there was no one in sight. The street outside was still and empty, the only sound the soft echo of distant footsteps. With one last glance at the building, Celeste stepped into the night. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet beneath her feet as she made her way toward the main road. The streets were quieter now, the vendors gone, the night air cool against her skin. Her heart beat loudly in her chest as she walked, each step feeling like a defiant answer to the life she'd lived up until now. It wasn't easy. She had nothing but hope and fear as her companions. But as she passed the familiar landmarks of the city, streets she had walked hundreds of times, she realized she had made a choice. And no matter how hard or uncertain the road ahead might be, that was enough for her. The address on Jonathan's card wasn't far. It was in a more developed part of the city, where the buildings were taller, the streets wider, and the people seemed to be on a different kind of mission than the ones Celeste had seen in her neighborhood. After what felt like forever, she arrived at the building, a glass-fronted office, sleek and modern, standing in contrast to everything she knew. She stood in front of the door, staring at the large glass sign, Clark and Associates. Celeste took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, a receptionist looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Mr. Carr." "Jonathan Clark," Celeste said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind in her chest. The receptionist glanced at the computer screen. "He's expecting you. Right this way." Celeste followed the receptionist through a sleek hallway, past large offices with polished wood floors and expensive-looking furniture. It was a far cry from the cramped, damp rooms of Mama D's compound. When they reached the door to Jonathan's office, the receptionist knocked lightly and opened it. "Mr. Clark, your appointment is here." Jonathan looked up from his desk, his face lighting up when he saw Celeste. "Ah, Celeste," he said, standing and extending his hand. "Come in. I'm glad you could make it." Celeste stepped into the office, her heart pounding. She had taken the first step, but the road ahead was still uncertain. Would this be the fresh start she had dreamed of? Or would it be yet another false hope? Celeste stepped into Jonathan's office, her heart thudding in her chest. The room was sleek and modern, with dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling windows, and minimalist decor. The city skyline stretched out before her, a sharp contrast to the humble streets she'd walked just an hour before. Jonathan gestured to a chair across from his desk, and Celeste hesitated before sitting down. His office, though stunning, made her feel small, out of place. He settled into his chair, folding his hands in front of him. His gaze softened as he looked at her, but there was something about him that still felt distant, professional, in a way that was both reassuring and unsettling. "So, Celeste," Jonathan began, his voice calm and steady, "I'm glad you could come. I know this is a big step for you, and I want to make sure you understand exactly what I'm offering." Celeste nodded, her stomach still churning with uncertainty. "I'm listening." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, his eyes scanning her face as if searching for something deeper than just words. "I've been in this city a long time. I know the struggles that people face, especially those in difficult situations, and I want to help you get out of that life." Celeste's breath caught in her throat. "You said there were opportunities. What do you mean?" Jonathan's gaze never wavered. "I'm offering you a chance to work with me, to build a new future, not just for yourself, but for your child. There are projects I'm working on, real estate developments, and investments. People like you, people with potential, they get overlooked in this city, but not me. I see the potential in you." Celeste shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had come here hoping for a chance, but now, sitting in front of Jonathan, the weight of it all felt heavier than before. She wasn't sure if it was the lavish office, the man's sharp confidence, or the fear of another false hope, but she couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. "What kind of work?" she asked cautiously. "What exactly would I be doing?" Jonathan smiled, but it was a knowing smile, the kind that made her feel as if he already had everything figured out while she was still fumbling in the dark. "There are many ways you could contribute, Celeste. I'm offering you the chance to learn, to grow, to be more than just another face in the crowd. I'm connected with influential people, people who can help you reach your potential. It's not just about money, though. It's about status, recognition. You've had enough of being invisible, haven't you?" Celeste's chest tightened. She didn't want to admit it, but Jonathan's words hit too close to home. For so long, she had felt invisible, overlooked by her family, ignored by society. The thought of finally being seen, of finally having something that was hers, was tempting. So tempting. But something still didn't sit right. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about my life." Jonathan's eyes softened, a flash of something, sympathy, passing over his face. "I know more than you think. I know your story, Celeste. I know where you've been, and I know where you could go if you have the right people guiding you." She looked at him, trying to make sense of his words. He was offering her everything, everything she had ever dreamed of. But there was something in his tone, something calculating, that made her hesitate. She didn't know if she could trust him. She didn't know if this was the opportunity she had been waiting for, or if it was just another trap. "What do you expect from me in return?" she asked, her voice steady despite the swirl of doubts inside her. Jonathan leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing as he regarded her with an intensity that made Celeste's skin crawl. Nothing you're not willing to give, just your commitment, your willingness to learn, and of course, your trust. Celeste's mind raced. Her thoughts were a blur, but one thing was clear. She couldn't afford to be naive. She had seen too many people come and go, promising things they could never deliver. Mama D's words echoed in her mind. There are no saviors in this world. The question was, what did she want? What was she willing to risk to get out of the life she had been stuck in for so long? She opened her mouth to speak, but the door to the office suddenly swung open, and a young woman entered, interrupting them both. "Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Clark," the woman said, her voice tense. "But there's someone here to see you. A client. They're waiting in the lobby." Jonathan looked at the woman, then at Celeste, before standing up and walking toward the door. "Excuse me for a moment. I'll be right back." Celeste remained in the chair, staring at the door, her thoughts spinning. She tried to collect herself, but the brief interruption had only made things more complicated. Was Jonathan really someone she could trust? Was this just another chance to climb the ladder, or would it be another one of life's bitter disappointments? Minutes later, Jonathan returned, his expression slightly more serious, though his smile never quite left his face. "Sorry about that," he said, sitting down again. "Now, where were we?" Celeste looked at him, but this time there was a firmness in her gaze. "I need more time to think about this," she said, her voice clear. "I can't just jump into something without understanding the full picture." Jonathan's smile faltered for just a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Of course, Celeste. Take all the time you need, but remember, opportunities like this don't wait forever." Celeste stood up, her decision firm in her mind. "I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk again." Jonathan stood as well, nodding. "I'll be here whenever you're ready." As Celeste turned to leave, a strange mixture of relief and apprehension washed over her. She hadn't made a decision yet, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had some control over her life. It wasn't much, but it was something. As she stepped back out into the city, the weight of the decision still hung heavy in her chest. She didn't know what the future held, but she was determined to find her own way, one step at a time. And for the first time in a long time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. The rain had returned by the time Celeste left Jonathan's office. It was as though the sky was reflecting her thoughts, clouded, uncertain, and heavy. The streets had become slick, the wet pavement gleaming beneath the city's neon lights, but Celeste barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, racing through the conversation she had just had. She had walked out of Jonathan's office feeling more conflicted than ever before. He had promised her opportunities, wealth, status, everything she had never had and had dreamed of. But there was a catch. There was always a catch. What if he's just another manipulator? The thought lingered in her mind as she navigated the streets, her footsteps quick and purposeful despite the rain. She had heard promises like this before. She had been told her life would change if she took this step, only to find herself back in the same place, stuck, invisible. But this was different, wasn't it? Jonathan had offered more than just words. He had shown her the possibility of a future that didn't look like the one her parents had forced her into. This could be her chance to finally escape the shadows of her past. But what if I fail? The doubt crept in, relentless. Her hands shook as she held the business card Jonathan had given her. Her fingers lingered over the smooth edges, the embossed text now a symbol of everything she didn't understand. Celeste needed time to think, to sort through the mess of her emotions. She couldn't go back to Mama D's compound, not yet. She had to be alone to make sense of everything. But where could she go? She didn't have friends in this city. No real connections. She had always been on her own. The answer came to her as if the city itself whispered it into her ear. The park. It was a quiet, peaceful place, just on the outskirts of the city. It had always been her escape when she needed time to think, to breathe away from the pressures of life. She didn't know why she hadn't thought of it sooner, but now it was the only place that made sense. She made her way there through the winding streets, the heavy rain now almost a comfort, shielding her from the thoughts that were becoming too much to bear. The park was empty, save for the occasional jogger running through the rain. The trees, their leaves glistening with water, swayed gently in the breeze, creating a calming rhythm. Celeste found a bench under a large oak tree and sat down, pulling her coat tightly around her. The air smelled fresh, earthy, and clean, far removed from the stifling tension of the city. She let out a slow breath, her thoughts slowing as she stared at the park's empty paths. She didn't know what she was looking for. Maybe an answer, or maybe just some peace. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the cool air wash over her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She hadn't expected it. She had turned it off after leaving Jonathan's office, trying to avoid the calls from her parents, trying to avoid the looming pressure of her old life. But the vibration was persistent. Celeste pulled the phone out and saw a message from Mama D. Her heart sank. It had only been a few hours, but already Mama D was checking in, demanding answers. "Where are you? I'm not going to keep waiting. You need to come back now. Don't make me come for you." Her fingers hovered over the screen. She wanted to ignore it, to shut it out. But the old part of her, the part that had been raised to listen, to obey, felt the familiar pull of guilt. She had disappointed her mother. She had disappointed everyone who had ever cared about her. But was she really the same person anymore? Was she still the girl who had been pushed into the corner, into a life she never asked for? No. This was her moment. The only one she had. She pressed the delete button, erasing the message before it could sink into her heart. No going back, she told herself firmly. No more letting them control me. As she sat there, the rain slowly began to lighten, the weight of the decision lifting slightly. The noise of the city was faint in the distance, but here, in the quiet of the park, she felt a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in ages. Celeste stood up, determined. She wasn't going back to Mama D. She wasn't going back to the life they had planned for her. Whatever happened with Jonathan, whatever choices lay ahead, she would face them on her own terms. But as she turned to leave, the sudden ringing of her phone stopped her again. This time, the name that flashed across the screen sent a chill down her spine. It was Walter, her father. She hesitated for a moment, the phone still ringing. The connection between her and her parents was strained at best, but this was different. She knew her father wasn't calling to check on her. This call, she realized, was likely the start of something even worse. Her hand shook as she answered the phone. "Celeste," Walter's voice came through, low and sharp. "You've made a big mistake." Celeste's stomach twisted. "What do you want?" Her father sighed, as though the conversation was beneath him. "I'm giving you one last chance. Come back. Now. You can't just throw everything away like this." She could hear the anger in his voice, but also something else. Something colder. Fear. "I'm not coming back," Celeste said firmly. The words felt strange, unfamiliar, but liberating. "I'm done with this. Done with all of it." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Walter spoke again, his voice colder than before. "You'll regret this. You'll regret leaving everything we've given you. You won't make it on your own." Celeste swallowed the knot in her throat. "I'll make it. Watch me." She ended the call before he could say anything else. Her heart was racing, but there was a quiet confidence in her now. This was the beginning of something, the beginning of her own path. She took a deep breath and turned back toward the city, ready to face whatever came next. Celeste's walk back into the city was different this time. The weight of her father's words still lingered, but it was no longer the crushing force it had been. There was a small spark inside her now, something that made her feel less like a victim and more like someone who could finally stand tall, no matter the obstacles in her way. As she approached the bustling city streets, the noise and movement around her felt more distant than before. The world, so full of distractions and people, seemed like a blur as Celeste's mind remained focused on the decision she had made. She wasn't sure if it was the right one yet, but it was hers. She would no longer be a bystander in her own life. But despite the newfound sense of purpose, Celeste couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that she might be walking into something far darker than she anticipated. Jonathan's offer had been alluring, too alluring. Could it really be as simple as he made it seem? She had no answers, but one thing was certain. She couldn't go back to where she came from. The next morning, after a night of tossing and turning, Celeste stood in front of her mirror, staring at the reflection that stared back at her. She had put on a brave face, but deep down, doubt still gnawed at her. She had no idea what she was doing, what she was getting into. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Jonathan. The text was brief but deliberate. "Let's meet. I think you're ready for the next step." Her pulse quickened. Was this the moment? Was this the beginning of everything she had hoped for? Or was it another trap, another opportunity for someone to take advantage of her desperation? She couldn't ignore it. Not now. Not after everything she had been through. She replied quickly, "I'm ready." The meeting was set for later that afternoon, and Celeste could feel her anxiety rising with each passing minute. She had been through a lot. Too much, perhaps. But now, standing on the precipice of a new chapter in her life, she didn't know if she was strong enough to walk into it. The unknown felt like a vast ocean, and she was standing at the edge, unsure of what lay beneath. When Celeste arrived at the sleek, modern building where Jonathan had set the meeting, she was greeted by a security guard who led her up to the penthouse floor. The elevator ride felt interminable, and by the time the doors slid open, Celeste's nerves were on edge. Jonathan's office was just as pristine as the last time she had been there, but this time, there was something different about it. The walls were lined with expensive art, the floors polished to a mirror-like shine. The space felt cold, impersonal, and Jonathan, sitting behind his desk, looked even more imposing than she remembered. He smiled as she entered, standing up to greet her with a smooth, calculated grace. "Celeste, I'm glad you came." She nodded, feeling both excited and terrified. "I'm here. What's next?" Jonathan gestured to a chair across from him. "Have a seat. There's something important I want to discuss with you." Celeste hesitated for a moment before sitting down. She was trying to keep her composure, but there was a part of her that still felt exposed. She wasn't sure if she was ready for whatever he was going to say next, but she knew she had to hear it. "I've been thinking a lot about your situation," Jonathan began, his tone smooth and deliberate. "And I think you have the potential to be something truly extraordinary. But in order to make that happen, you'll need to understand the kind of commitment it takes. This isn't just a job, Celeste. It's a lifestyle. A complete shift in how you view yourself and the world around you." Celeste's stomach tightened. "What do you mean by that?" Jonathan's smile deepened, though there was something darker behind it now. "I mean that the world you know, the one where you struggle, where you feel small and powerless, isn't the world that you're meant for. I can show you a different reality, one where you have control, one where you can finally escape the weight of everything that's been holding you back." The words sounded promising, but something about the way he said them unsettled her. There was a coldness to his demeanor, a calculating look in his eyes that she couldn't ignore. This wasn't about kindness or helping her rise. It was about power. "I understand the allure of this new life," Jonathan continued, leaning forward slightly. "But I need to know that you're ready to make the sacrifices necessary. This isn't just about work. It's about loyalty, about trust, about making decisions that will change your life in ways you can't even imagine." Celeste felt her heart race. "What kind of sacrifices?" Jonathan's eyes gleamed. "You'll need to cut ties with your old life, with everything and everyone that's been holding you back. No more distractions, no more playing by the rules of a system that's never had your best interests at heart." Celeste's pulse quickened. This sounded too much like manipulation. She wasn't sure if she could go through with it, but she was already too deep into this to back out now. Her phone buzzed again, snapping her out of her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. Her mother, Eleanor, the same number that had tormented her with guilt and threats ever since she had left. Without thinking, she silenced it, ignoring the call. She didn't want to go back. Not yet. Not when she was so close to finding something better, something different. Jonathan watched her carefully as she put the phone down. "I see you're already making choices. But remember, Celeste, this is just the beginning. The next step is the most important one." "What's the next step?" she asked, trying to mask the unease in her voice. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're going to meet some of my partners. We're going to see if you have what it takes to be a part of this world. If you do, I promise you, you'll never want to look back." Celeste's thoughts were a storm of uncertainty. She had come here for a fresh start, but the reality of what she was being offered was beginning to feel like a different kind of trap. She had to make a decision, fast. She stood up, her decision forming in her mind. "I need time to think about it." Jonathan's gaze didn't waver. "Of course, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever." Celeste walked out of the office, her mind racing. She had come to Jonathan with hope, but now she wasn't sure if she was walking into a dream or a nightmare. The choices she made in the coming days would determine everything: her future, her freedom, and whether or not she would ever escape the life she had known. Celeste couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through her fingers. She had walked out of Jonathan's office with the promise of a new life. But now, as she stood on the busy streets of the city, it felt more like she was trapped in a web she didn't understand. Each step she took seemed to lead her further into something darker, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could pretend to have control. The city had always been a place of possibilities. It had been her dream to move here, to escape the confines of the life her parents had tried to carve out for her. But now, everything felt so much more complicated. The lights, the noise, the fast pace, it all seemed like a constant reminder that she wasn't sure where she belonged anymore. As Celeste walked along the sidewalk, her thoughts swirled like the leaves that danced around her feet. She couldn't go back to her parents. She couldn't return to the life they had mapped out for her. But was this the right path? Was Jonathan's offer, with all its promises of power and control, really the fresh start she was looking for? Or was she walking straight into a trap that she would never escape from? Her phone buzzed again, interrupting her thoughts. She pulled it out of her pocket, already dreading who it might be. But when she saw the name on the screen, she felt a lump form in her throat. It was Mama D. Celeste hadn't heard from her since the day she had left. The woman who had taken her in, who had taught her how to survive in the streets, was still trying to make her return. The guilt that surged through her was unbearable. She didn't want to be dragged back into that world, the world that had kept her small, that had always made her feel like a tool to be used and discarded. Reluctantly, Celeste answered the call. Celeste. Mama D's voice was heavy, tinged with the bitterness that Celeste had become all too familiar with. "You've been gone for days. You think I don't know what's going on? You think I can't figure out what you're doing?" Celeste tightened her grip on the phone, trying to steady her breath. "I'm fine, Mama D. I'm figuring things out." "Figuring things out?" Mama D scoffed. "You're too good for us now, huh? I'm not going to sit here and watch you throw away the one chance you have to make something of yourself." Celeste's heart pounded in her chest. She had known this moment was coming, but hearing Mama D's words still stung. The truth was, Celeste didn't want to lose the woman who had been a mother figure to her for so long. But she couldn't keep pretending. She couldn't go back to that life, to being used. "I'm not throwing anything away," Celeste replied, her voice more confident than she felt. "I'm just..." "Just what?" Mama D interrupted. "Don't lie to me, Celeste. You're with him, aren't you? Jonathan, the man who's playing you for a fool." The words cut deeper than she expected. Celeste had been trying so hard to push the doubts away, but Mama D's accusation hit a nerve. She had barely spent any time with Jonathan, yet something about him felt off. The promises he made, the smooth talk, it all seemed too easy. But was it really all a lie? I don't know," Celeste stammered. "He's offered me something different, Mama D. A way out." "A way out?" Mama D's voice was colder now. "He's not offering you a way out, Celeste. He's offering you a leash, a way to control you. Don't be stupid." Celeste's breath caught in her throat. The thought of being controlled, manipulated, it was something she had feared all along, but hadn't wanted to admit. She had hoped that Jonathan was the answer, the escape, but what if he wasn't? "Mama D, I need to go. I can't talk right now," Celeste said, her voice breaking slightly. "You listen to me, Celeste," Mama D said firmly. "You're better than this. You deserve more. Don't let him ruin you. I'm telling you, he's not what you think." With that, the call ended abruptly. Celeste stood in the middle of the busy street, her hands still clutching the phone. Her mind raced, her heart pounding. What was she doing? Was she really about to throw away everything for the sake of a stranger's promises? Could Mama D be right? She couldn't stand still any longer. She had to make a decision, one way or another. Jonathan's meeting had left her feeling like she was on the edge of something huge, but now the consequences were starting to feel too real. Could she trust him? Or was she simply trading one cage for another? As if on cue, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jonathan, his name flashing on the screen with a message. "You didn't show up. What's going on? We need to talk." Celeste felt the anxiety rising in her chest. She wasn't ready for this, wasn't ready to face him just yet. She wasn't even sure what she wanted anymore. She couldn't ignore him, though. Not after everything he had offered her. But could she really trust him? Could she trust herself? Before she could respond, the door to a nearby coffee shop swung open, and a familiar face stepped out. Celeste's heart skipped a beat when she saw him. It was Jonathan. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not right now. He looked around, his eyes scanning the street before they landed on her. He gave her a smile that was warm, but there was something behind it, a pressure she couldn't quite place. A sense that he knew more than he was letting on. "You've been avoiding me," Jonathan said, his voice calm but firm. "You can't keep running, Celeste. It's time to make a choice." Her heart hammered in her chest. She had been running, hadn't she? Running from her past, from her parents, from Mama D, and now she was running from herself. Celeste knew this was the moment. She could turn away, she could walk away from it all, or she could face the consequences of her choices head on. She didn't know if she was ready for this, but one thing was clear. Her life had just become even more complicated. Celeste stood frozen, the weight of Jonathan's gaze pressing against her like a physical force. His eyes were calculating, unwavering, as if he were waiting for her to make a decision. Every instinct within her screamed to run, to retreat back to the comfort of what she knew, to go back to Mama D, or even find another path altogether. But instead, she found herself standing there, rooted to the spot, her mind spinning. Jonathan took a slow step toward her, his expression one of patience, but with an underlying tension that Celeste couldn't ignore. "You've been avoiding me for days, Celeste. That's not like you." His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now, a hint of frustration beneath the surface. "We need to talk." Celeste's heart pounded in her chest. There was a part of her that wanted to tell him to leave her alone, to walk away from all this, but the other part, the part that had been so desperate for a way out of the life she'd known, was fighting to stay engaged. She didn't know what she wanted anymore, didn't know who she could trust. "What do you want from me, Jonathan?" Celeste finally managed to say, her voice shaking slightly. Jonathan paused, studying her for a moment before speaking. "What do I want? I want you to stop running from what's inevitable." He took another step closer, his presence overwhelming. "You know this opportunity is the only real chance you'll ever have to build a life of your own. A life where you're not constantly waiting for someone else's approval or living in the shadow of your parents' expectations. I can help you get there, but only if you stop pretending like you're not already there." Celeste's stomach twisted. She had heard these words before, in different forms, from different people, all promising the same thing: freedom. But at what cost? What would she have to give up to be free? Her mind flashed to Mama D's warning, and her stomach tightened. He's not offering you a way out, he's offering you a leash. Was Mama D right? Could Jonathan really be the solution he claimed to be, or was this another trap, another manipulation? "I don't know what you want from me," Celeste whispered, her hands trembling. "You're asking me to give up everything I've known. My past, my future, and I don't even know what that future looks like." Jonathan's smile didn't falter, but his eyes darkened. "You're not giving up anything, Celeste. You're stepping into something bigger, something you've always been meant for. What's waiting for you in your past? Your parents? A life of disappointment and wasted potential? It's time to stop playing small." Celeste felt a chill crawl up her spine at the intensity of his words. They were alluring, tempting even, but something inside her resisted. Is this who I am? She thought. Am I just someone looking for a way out? She shook her head, trying to clear the doubts swirling in her mind. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can trust you. Jonathan's expression softened, though there was still a glint of something darker in his eyes. He reached out, gently touching her arm. You don't have to trust me right away. You just have to trust yourself. You've got what it takes, Celeste. I see it in you, and I'm offering you the opportunity to prove it. But you can't do that if you keep holding on to what's behind you. For a moment, Celeste thought about the life she had left behind, the life with her parents, the life she had grown up in, the expectations that had suffocated her for so long, and then she thought of the life ahead, the life Jonathan was offering, a life of freedom, of power, of control. But was it truly freedom? Or was it just another kind of cage? A car honked nearby, and Celeste glanced around, startled. The city was still moving, still bustling with life, and she was standing here, at the edge of a choice that could change everything. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing against her chest, the uncertainty, the fear. Why don't you just let me show you, Celeste? Jonathan's voice interrupted her thoughts, and she looked up at him, feeling the pull of his presence. You don't have to make the decision now. Just come with me. See the people I work with. Let me show you what you could be. I promise you, it's nothing like what you've been told. She hesitated, the fear inside her bubbling to the surface. She was so close to making a choice, so close to stepping into the unknown. But part of her screamed to turn away. She wasn't ready for this, not yet. But Jonathan's words, so smooth, so calculated, sounded like an answer to the emptiness inside her. The part of her that had always longed for more, that had always wanted something bigger, something better than the life she had known. I don't know if I can, she said quietly, her voice trembling with uncertainty. I don't know if I can trust you. Jonathan took a step back, giving her some space. He seemed to understand, or perhaps he was just playing his part, letting her come to him on her own terms. You don't have to trust me, not yet, but you do have to decide, right now, because once you make this choice, there's no going back. You can't keep hiding, Celeste. You can't keep pretending like the world is something it's not. Her pulse raced as she stared into his eyes, trying to read him, trying to see through the facade of charm and confidence. She wasn't sure what she was seeing. What if he was right? What if she was just scared of her own potential? What if this was the chance she had been waiting for? But the voice inside her, the one that had warned her about Jonathan, the one that had reminded her of Mama Dee's words, wouldn't be silenced. There was something wrong here, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She wasn't ready to make this leap. I need more time, she said, the words tasting like defeat on her tongue. Jonathan's expression remained unchanged, but Celeste could see the flicker of something cold in his eyes. Fine, but don't take too long, Celeste. Time is something you won't get back. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of the street, the noise of the city swirling around her. Her mind was a storm of thoughts and emotions. Had she made the right choice? Or had she just lost her one chance at a better life? The sound of her phone buzzing in her pocket pulled her back to reality. She pulled it out, her heart sinking as she saw the message from her mother. I'm not done with you. Don't make me come find you. The words sent a chill through her. She couldn't escape her past. It was following her, no matter how far she tried to run. The city was louder than usual. The honking cars, the voices of the crowd, the bustle of people rushing to and from their destinations. It all felt like it was closing in on Celeste, squeezing her in from all sides. She felt as if she was standing at the edge of a precipice, with nothing but the black abyss beneath her, and every step she took brought her closer to falling. She had only moments ago received that chilling message from her mother. Eleanor, I'm not done with you. Don't make me come find you. The words were seared into her mind, and they echoed in her head, louder and more terrifying than anything Jonathan had said. Her mother's threats had always been a shadow in the corner of her life, but now they were real. Real in a way that made her stomach churn and her hands tremble. Celeste had fought so hard to break free from her past, from the expectations, the rules, the controlling grip of her parents. But it seemed as though no matter how far she ran, they were always there, lurking just behind her. And now her mother had found a way to reach her, even from a distance. She found herself walking faster, her feet pounding against the concrete as she tried to outrun the fear. She had to get out of the city, at least for a while. She needed space, time to think, to figure out her next move. But the city felt like it was suffocating her. Everywhere she looked, she saw reminders of the life she was trying to escape. Her phone buzzed again, and she glanced down at the screen. It was Jonathan, his name flashing ominously. "I thought you needed more time. What are you waiting for? I'm here. Let's talk." The words felt like a pressure, another invisible hand reaching out to claim her. Jonathan had promised her freedom, a way out, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that the only thing he was really offering was control. He had a way of making her feel like she didn't have a choice, like this was the only option left for her. But what if it wasn't? Celeste stopped in her tracks, standing at a crosswalk with cars speeding past. She gripped the phone in her hand, torn between the two conflicting pulls on her life. Jonathan, with his promises of power and control, and her mother, who seemed to think she could dictate every step of Celeste's existence. She had no idea what to do. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden tap on her shoulder. Celeste turned around, her heart skipping a beat. It was a woman, someone she didn't recognize, with dark eyes and an air of mystery surrounding her. The woman was dressed in a sleek black jacket and sunglasses, even though it was late afternoon. "Celeste Vaughn?" the woman asked, her voice smooth and calm. Celeste took a step back, eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" The woman smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that sent a chill down her spine. "I'm someone who's been looking for you." Celeste's heart raced as she quickly scanned the street for any signs of danger. "I don't know you. What do you want?" The woman leaned in slightly, her voice lowering. "I think we can help each other, Celeste. You're at a crossroads right now, aren't you? You're not sure which way to go, but I have something you might want, something that could change everything." Celeste's breath hitched. Who was this woman? How did she know so much about her? "I don't know what you're talking about," Celeste replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman chuckled softly. "Of course you don't, but you will soon enough." She paused, as if waiting for Celeste to respond. When she didn't, the woman continued. "I know about your family, about Jonathan. I know everything, Celeste. You don't have to make this decision alone. You don't have to trust Jonathan to get what you want." Celeste's pulse quickened. This was no coincidence. Somehow, this woman knew more than she should, and the mention of Jonathan's name made Celeste's thoughts swirl in confusion. "I don't want any trouble," Celeste said, her voice trembling slightly. She wanted to walk away, to turn back, but her feet felt frozen to the ground. The woman reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to Celeste, who hesitated for a moment before accepting it. The woman's smile deepened, and there was something about it that sent a wave of unease through Celeste's chest. "Inside that envelope is the key to your future, Celeste," the woman said. "Take it, open it, and you'll know what to do next." Without another word, the woman turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd as quickly as she had appeared. Celeste stood there, staring at the envelope in her hand, unsure of what to do. Her heart was pounding in her chest, the fear and confusion flooding her all at once. What had just happened? Who was that woman? And why did she feel like she had just been handed a choice she couldn't ignore? She glanced around the city street, the noise and the chaos of the world continuing on without her. She was no longer sure of anything. The weight of her decisions, of the promises she had been given by both Jonathan and this mysterious woman, was overwhelming. The envelope in her hand felt heavier now, as if it held not just a piece of paper, but the fate of everything she had worked so hard to build. She was at the edge, staring down at the abyss. The decision that had been dangling in front of her for so long was finally here. She had to choose. And in that moment, Celeste realized something she hadn't admitted to herself before. She wasn't just afraid of what was behind her, of the life her parents had tried to trap her in. No, She was afraid of what might lie ahead. She was afraid of who she might become in the process of chasing after a future that promised everything she ever wanted. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for that. Celeste stood there, her fingers nervously clutching the envelope the mysterious woman had handed her. The city continued to bustle around her, indifferent to the storm brewing in her mind. Her heart raced, and for the first time in weeks, she felt completely alone. The envelope in her hand felt like a heavy burden, a symbol of the crossroads she had reached. She glanced at the street around her, trying to ground herself in reality. The world was moving forward, but she felt like she was standing still. She thought back to her conversation with Jonathan, his promises of power, freedom, and a life beyond the limitations her parents had set for her. But at what cost? She thought about her mother's message. The cold, threatening words. "I'm not done with you. Don't make me come find you." They lingered in her mind like a dark cloud. Celeste couldn't shake the image of her mother's face. The sharp lines of disapproval, the tightness of her jaw when she told Celeste that she was a disappointment. The city felt different now. It wasn't just the noise of the traffic or the rush of people. It was the sense that everything she had built her life on, her choices, her independence, was slipping through her fingers like sand. She had been so determined to break free from her parents, from her past, but what had she really accomplished? Was she just trading one set of chains for another? With a deep breath, she tore open the envelope. The paper inside was thick and crisp, and as she unfolded it, she saw a letter written in neat, deliberate handwriting. "Celeste," the letter began. "I know you're at a crossroads right now, torn between your past and the future you can't seem to grasp. Jonathan has made you promises, but promises are nothing more than words until you see the truth. This is your chance to make a decision, one that will change everything. You've been told you can't have both, but you can. You can take control of your life. You can have the power, the freedom, and the success that you've always dreamed of. But there's a price. There always is. The decision is yours. Do you want to live in the shadow of your past forever, or will you step into the light of your future? Don't let anyone, especially your parents, dictate your choices for you. You are stronger than you know, Celeste. The choice is yours. Make it wisely. Yours, a friend." Celeste's mind raced as she read the letter. Her breath caught in her throat. The words were so familiar, so similar to what Jonathan had said to her. Take control, step into your future, make your own decisions. But this was different. This letter wasn't offering her a partnership. It wasn't promising her a life of luxury or success. It was more insidious. It was a command to choose now. Her fingers shook as she crumpled the letter, the weight of it pressing down on her chest. She wanted to run. She wanted to forget about all of this. The choices, the people, the promises. But she knew she couldn't. The truth was, Celeste had always wanted more. She had wanted freedom. She had wanted to break away from the suffocating grip of her parents and their expectations. But now, she was faced with the reality that freedom wasn't just about breaking away from the past. It was about forging a new path, one that wasn't based on someone else's terms. She stuffed the crumpled letter back into the envelope and tucked it into her bag. Her mind was a whirl of confusion and fear. Jonathan's promises still lingered in her mind. But now, this letter, this mysterious message from a stranger, had complicated things. Was this another manipulation, or was it a genuine offer of freedom? She needed answers, and she needed them fast. Celeste took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She couldn't think clearly. She had to make a decision, and she couldn't let fear dictate her next move. She needed to talk to someone who could offer her a fresh perspective. Without hesitation, she pulled out her phone and dialed Mama D's number. The phone rang once, twice, and then on the third ring, the familiar voice of Mama D came through. "Celeste, what's going on?" Mama D's voice was warm, but Celeste could hear the concern in her tone. "I've been waiting for you to call. I know you've got a lot on your plate right now." Celeste swallowed hard, feeling a lump in her throat. "I don't know what to do, Mama D. I feel like I'm drowning in all these choices. I don't know who to trust anymore." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Celeste could almost hear Mama D's thoughts as she considered her next words. "I've been watching you, Celeste," Mama D finally said. "And I know you're stronger than this. You've come so far, but you're still letting the past control you. You're still letting people like your mother and Jonathan, pull the strings. You have to decide who you want to be, and you have to do it for you, no one else." Celeste's heart skipped a beat. "But I don't know how to let go, Mama D. How do I stop being afraid of the future?" Mama D's voice softened, and Celeste could almost feel the compassion in her words. "You don't have to have all the answers right now, but you have to stop running from the fear. Fear will always be there, Celeste. It's about how you face it. You need to take control of your life, your choices, and trust that no matter what you choose, you will be okay." Celeste closed her eyes, the words sinking deep into her heart. She had spent so much of her life being afraid of disappointing people, afraid of failure, afraid of the unknown. But now, more than ever, she understood. It wasn't about running from fear. It was about moving forward with it, embracing it, and making the decisions that would shape her future. "I'm scared, Mama D," Celeste whispered, her voice shaking. "But I think I'm ready to make a choice," Mama D chuckled softly. "You've always been ready, Celeste. It's just about finding the strength to believe in yourself." The words settled over Celeste like a warm blanket, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. "I'll make it right," Celeste said, more to herself than to Mama D. "I'll make the choice that's best for me." With a deep breath, she ended the call and stood tall, feeling the weight of her decision begin to settle on her shoulders. It wasn't going to be easy. She knew that, but she was no longer afraid of what came next. The path ahead was hers to create. Celeste stood at the edge of the park, her heart pounding in her chest. The sky was overcast, casting a dull grey light over the city, and the streets seemed quieter than usual. It was as if the world had paused for a moment, holding its breath, waiting for her to make her next move. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her like an invisible force. She had made up her mind. No longer would she be manipulated by her past, by the expectations of others, or by the promises that seemed to be nothing more than hollow words. She had spent too many years letting fear dictate her choices. It was time to stop running. But as much as she told herself she was ready, a part of her still quivered. The truth was, Celeste didn't know if she was making the right choice. She didn't know if there even was a right choice anymore. Jonathan's offer still lingered in her mind, like a faint whisper in the back of her mind. The man who had promised her everything, the power, the control, the success. But what if it was just a facade? What if he was only interested in using her to climb higher? And then there was the mysterious woman who had handed her the letter. What was her agenda? She still didn't know who she could truly trust. But one thing was clear. She had to stop depending on other people to dictate her future. Taking a deep breath, Celeste pulled out her phone and dialed Jonathan's number. Her fingers hovered over the screen for a moment, unsure. But then she pressed the call button. The line rang, the sound like a pounding drum in her ears. After what felt like an eternity, Jonathan picked up. "Celeste," he greeted, his voice smooth and calm, but there was an edge to it. "I've been waiting for you to reach out. You know you're ready for this. I'm giving you the opportunity you've been waiting for." Celeste swallowed hard, her heart racing as she stared out at the city. "I've thought about it, Jonathan, and I've come to a decision." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Celeste could almost feel the tension in the air. "I'm listening," Jonathan said, his voice thick with anticipation. "I'm done with the games," Celeste said, her voice steady now, her grip on the phone tightening. "I'm not going to follow your path anymore. I'm going to create my own future. I don't need your promises or your power." Jonathan was quiet for a moment, and Celeste could almost hear the surprise in his silence. He had underestimated her. She wasn't the naive, unsure woman he had once manipulated. She was stronger now, and she knew her worth. "You'll regret this," Jonathan said finally, his voice colder. "You think you can make it on your own? You don't even know what you're walking away from." "Maybe," Celeste replied, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "But I'll never know unless I try." The line went silent for a beat, and Celeste took a deep breath. She had said her piece. She had severed her ties with him. And then the phone clicked, signaling the end of the conversation. Celeste stared at the screen for a moment, as if expecting the call to be reversed, for Jonathan to beg her to come back. But the phone remained still in her hand, the finality of the decision settling over her like a weight. She had done it. She had chosen herself. But just as she was about to put her phone away, it buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Jonathan. The message was from an unknown number. With a raised brow, Celeste opened the message. "I'm not done with you yet. You can't run from your past. I'll make sure of it." Her stomach dropped as she read the chilling words. Eleanor. Her mother had found her again. Celeste's heart raced as she clutched the phone tighter, a cold sweat breaking out on her brow. The past wasn't going to let her go that easily, she realized. It was always lurking just behind her, waiting for the right moment to strike. But this time, Celeste wasn't going to let fear control her. She wasn't going to let her mother dictate who she was or what she could become. She turned and walked toward the park bench, her thoughts swirling. The city around her seemed louder now, the noises intensifying. The clattering of the streetcars, the chatter of pedestrians, all of it felt distant, like she was no longer a part of it. For a moment, Celeste felt completely isolated, suspended between two worlds, the world she had tried so hard to escape and the one she was trying to build for herself. She wasn't sure what her next step would be. She didn't know how to fix everything, or if it could even be fixed. But she did know one thing: she couldn't go back. Not to Jonathan, not to her parents, not to the life that had tried to suffocate her. She had burned her bridges, and now she had to find her way forward. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. The message was clear. Eleanor was coming for her. But this time, Celeste wasn't afraid. This time, she was ready to face whatever came next. She stood up from the bench, taking one last look at the city. The storm inside her heart had not yet passed, but she was no longer afraid of it. She wasn't afraid of what her mother or Jonathan or anyone else had in store for her, because she had something they didn't: the power to choose her own path. And for the first time in her life, Celeste felt free, to be continued.